Hey guys, Pastor April here, and today we are going to be talking about how to raise godly kids and why we should even want to do that in the first place. As a parent, this one is near and dear to my heart, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. But before I get into the main part of the message, I do want to ask that you guys please like and subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos on Thursday, and they are all faith-based. So if that would be of interest to you, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring that bell. Okay, so what are my credentials? Well, we have two kids, my husband and I. Our oldest is 18. He's getting ready to graduate from high school. And our youngest is a freshman. And while they're still not quite raised, they've got a little bit of raising to go. We have gotten them past the majority of at least one of them, most of their childhood. And so looking back at, who they are as people, I am very blessed to say that we raised two individuals that are in church every single Sunday. They are serving usually in some capacity at church. They are not perfect, but they're not out on the weekends, partying, doing those things. Again, not perfect. I am sure that they are doing things that I do not like, nor do I approve, but by and large, I know where they're at on a Saturday night. We also don't get calls from the schools. These are straight A students. And so, I have good kids, not perfect kids, but I have really good kids that do both love the Lord. I'm fairly confident that when they become adults that they are going to still be engaging in their faith, and that as a mom is incredibly important to me. So I have a little bit of credentials. Again, they're not quite all the way there yet, but I might be a little bit biased when I say this. I've got two pretty fantastic kiddos. Okay, but why does it even matter? Like, why do we need to be raising godly kids? And I am a big fan of knowing the why whenever you're talking about things of this nature. And so there are 3 studies that I want to point out about how faith can impact you individually and in particular your child's development. And Harvard did a study back in 2020, and here's what they discovered. People who attended religious services at least once a week were significantly less likely to die from deaths of despair, including deaths related to suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol poisoning. And it makes a ton of sense to me because those religious services, typically they promote hope. In fact, a study from BYU says just that a family's religious beliefs and practices are a key catalyst to promote hope in the future and hope to manage personal challenges, which helps families build resiliency and unity. And man, we do need unity in the family unit, especially in this culture that sort of promotes the individual. I think we have promoted it so much that we're missing that community and unity, which again, we need as people. We were created for a connection. And so what religious beliefs do is bring that connection back. The last thing I want to point out, and I really loved this. This is from the American Psychological Association. They found that children involved in religious activities tend to exhibit lower levels of substance abuse and delinquency. Another study from the Journal of Family Psychology highlighted that religious participation is associated with higher levels of family cohesion and child well-being. And listen, y'all, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Faith is so incredibly important for mental health. And I know that we have dismissed it. I know that we think that it's not a big deal. And listen, as a parent who hasn't always gotten this right, I can tell you that your children need that hope in order to get through their childhood. It is so incredibly important. And you need that hope as well. And so bottom line, parents, take your kid to church, right? They're already facing enough that the world is throwing at them. Prepare them by making sure that they are engaged in a local body of believers. It's so incredibly important for their development. Church matters for kids. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we raise godly kids? I've convinced you with my 2 minutes that maybe it's important to consider, faith in your kids' life. So how do we do it? Well, it's so incredibly important to start with you. And I think that this is the step that parents really neglect. It's sort of like if you've ever been on an airplane, you're told in an emergency situation when the air comes down, you want to put it on your own face first, right? It's so that you can help the people next to you. If you are not getting air, it's very difficult for you, right, to help the person next to you. So you've got to make sure that you're feeding your faith, that you are a believer of Christ, right? It all starts with that. You have to know that Jesus is your Savior, and it's okay to ask questions about it. I think a lot of times churches don't promote those questions, which makes me really sad, because there's a ton of evidence that we as believers can lean on about, the Bible and who Jesus is. And I think you can prove the death and resurrection. I think we have enough evidence, and you can take logic and reasoning and sort of get there. And so you've got to establish that first, parent, that you believe that you are saved. And from there, are you attending church regularly? I hope I'm stepping on some toes here, because church is important. And I know that we've gotten away from it, again, because I think in our society, we sort of promote this individual stance. And while our salvation is worked out individually with our own fear and trembling, we're also called in the Bible to come together as believers. In fact, most of the books of the New Testament are letters written to churches, right? Church is important. Jesus tells Peter, listen, on this rock I will build my church. I need you to feed my sheep. We see time and time again where we're called to come together. Now, not to be a part of a building. That's sort of what we've reduced church to. Church in the New Testament is an ecclesia, which is a group of people. It's a gathering together of like-minded individuals. Doesn't matter where that gathering happens. We're a church plant. We're gathering right now in the high school auditorium. There are some churches, especially overseas, that are gathering in fields or in basements or wherever, right? It's not the where, it's the who. And that's the group of people. So are you in your own ecclesia? Are you involved in a group of people? Are you grafted in? And again, the picture is a body. I think this is so important, and one that we just overlook. Think about your own body. Each part of your body serves a unique purpose. In fact, when I take this drink of coffee, there's lots involved, right? I've got my lips, which purse over the whole, my tongue, which tastes the delicious coffee. I think the tongue might have the best job. Then it goes down my throat, it goes into my stomach, right? Where eventually the rest of the body will take care of it, right? But each member of my body has a unique role. And if my stomach decides to bow out for the day, that's a problem. That means my body cannot consume the things, or it cannot digest the things that it's consuming. And so it's so important that each member use the gift that it's been given and use it within the capacity of the body. And the same is true in our churches. We've got a lot of people that were not operating in their gifts. We've got a lot of people that are being entertained on Sunday. I hope I'm not stepping on too many toes here, but they think they go to church to have somebody speak to them. And that's not, again, the picture that Paul paints in the New Testament. The picture that Paul paints in the New Testament is a body coming together, each person using the gift that they were uniquely given to serve the body. And I think sometimes we get in what I call the business card mentality, where we think if I don't have a title that goes on a business card at the church, then I must not matter to the church. And that could not be further from the truth. You matter. You should be showing up. And so parents, I know I went a little long on this, but for you, in order to effectively raise godly kids, you first have to establish your own faith and religion, right? Because your kids are looking to you. And so if you want to raise godly kids, you need to be checking your heart. You need to be making sure that you are saved, that you are grafted in and serving within the body of believers. And is so mission critical to raising godly kids. Which leads me to my second point. We have got to stop giving up the education of faith to the Sunday school director at the door. And I see this so often where parents think, oh my gosh, I am just not qualified to talk to my kids about faith because they're not exploring faith on their own. And so they're hoping that Sister Sally at Sunday school is just going to be able to pour in all the religion that your kid needs. And I hate to tell you this, my sweet friend, but that's just not the way it works. Yes, Sunday school is great for kids. We have Sunday school. I love children's church. We do a midweek Mission 412, which I love. But that should not replace, hear me, that should not replace you, mom, dad, having conversations with your kids about their faith. That is so mission critical. your kids are looking to you. They're not looking to the Sister Sallies of the world. They're looking to you. And so you need to be engaging in regular conversations with kids about their faith and letting them ask questions and praying with them. They need to see you praying. They should see you reading the Bible, right? Engaging and serving in the church. And we bring our kids right along with us when we serve, and we have since the very beginning. In fact, it's kind of a cute story. When Nate was really, really little, of course, we packed him everywhere we went. And so when we would attend services for prayer, right, we would regularly pray for healing. And so when Nate was 3, he was at daycare, and I get a call. One of his friends had fallen down while they were outside playing and kind of scraped up their knee. And my son, because again, he's watching us as his parents. My son ran over and put his hand on the kid's knee and prayed for it. So it is so incredibly important, parents, for your kids to watch you engage in your faith. So be sure that you are not giving up that religious instructions to Sister Sally. You need to be talking about them. And one of the things that you can use are Christian books. In fact, that's part of the reason why I created Dragons Don't Go to Church and have several other children's books in the works, because it's so important for you to be able to have meaningful dialogue with your kids about their faith. And Christian books like this one are great ways to introduce those topics while you're getting ready for bed. You can sit in bed with your kiddo and read these things or other Bible stories and pray with them and just start that conversation. So parents, you are absolutely equipped and called to teach your kids about their faith. Do not be intimidated by it. And there's a ton of great pieces out there that can help you do that. So Sister Sally's wonderful, but Sister Sally is not who's going to be the most effective person in teaching your kids about their faith. All right, so here's a bonus. Because I talked a lot about the importance of church for you and for your kids, and they're really so incredibly important. So how do you find that right church home? I think you got to look for a couple things. I think one, you got to look for a church that you can plug into. And I think that this is mission critical. So don't look for the church that has the coolest band on a Sunday morning, or the most programs, or, the coolest building or whatever, right? Those things are nice, but that's not why you go to church. And it's not going to grow your faith. Listening to a really great band on Sunday mornings, while it's nice, it's not going to grow your faith. So you need to find a church that you can actually engage in and serve with. So check some out in your local community, and don't just go one time, go 4 times in a row. And don't just go 4 times in a row, maybe look for a place to volunteer, or find an event that the church is having and show up, right? We are missing out on that service element in our faith. And I see this time and time again, where Christians, they're attending a church, but they're not belonging to a church. And that difference is huge when you talk about growing your faith. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to find a church that you can belong to, that when you walk through the door, when you talk with the people, you're like, yep, I can serve here. There is a place for me to use the gifts that I have been given to impact the kingdom of God and also impact my own faith. So that is incredibly important. The second thing I would also encourage you is find one that is missionally focused outside of the 4 walls of their church. There's a lot of churches that focus more internally on the things that are going to make their congregants feel better and more comfortable. And what I would encourage you is look for the church that is looking outside, because our mission as a believer is to go out into the world and tell people about Jesus. And so you want to be a part of a church that not only encourages you in doing that, but also provides you with opportunities and different, tips and tricks and ways to help you be more effective in that. And so I think that's incredibly important. Find a church that is missionally focused outside, that is trying to reach the community and serve the community in some way. And then finally, I would also want to see a church that does believe that your kids' faith matters. I see, and I think the trend is shifting in this, which is really encouraging, but I have seen a lot of churches in the past where they kind of shove the kids in a back corner and throw some pizza at them and hope that it's good. But the truth is, your kids aren't just the future of the church, your kids are the church. 90% of people come to their salvation before age 18. And so it's really short-sighted of any church to not understand the importance of faith in that kid. And so they should not just be looking at the kids as a means to reach the parents, but rather as a ministry, that the kids' faith does matter. And so I would look for a church that feels the same way about a kid's faith as they do an adult's faith, because again, it is all the same God with the same message. And so whether you're 6 or 60, I think it's incredibly important for churches to be on point about ministering to them. So that is how I would look for churches. I would find one, again, that I feel comfortable to plug into, that gives me opportunities to use the gifts that I've been given. I would also look for one that is outwardly focused, that they are on fire about reaching the community for Christ. And then I would want to find one that sees my kids' faith as important as an adult's. All right, so that's a video on how to raise godly kids. And really, the good news is it's not that complicated. It starts with your own faith. You need to make sure that you have that foundationally established, and then it spreads into making sure that you are the one that's communicating with your kids about their faith, and you're not just passing that off on somebody else. You're not going to get this right all the time. You're not going to be perfect. I said I raised pretty good kids, and I believe that my husband and I have, but does that mean that I look back on their childhood and I think, man, I hit home run after home run after home run? No. In fact, I look back at their childhood and I think, man, I wish I would have done this differently. Man, I wish I would have done this differently. Oh man, if I could go back, this is what I would change, and that's normal. So this isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about little steps every day to get a little bit better. And again, making sure that you're not giving up that opportunity to communicate with your kids about their faith is incredibly important. Lean on tools like this. Children's Bible, there's a comic action Bible that's really neat. There's tons of resources for parents and kids. So look for those to engage you individually, engage with your kids in their faith. It'll make a massive difference, I promise you, in their faith. And I hope that this helps. I think it's time to go because my dog is banging at the door. So I'm not entirely sure what I'll talk about next week, but shameless plug for my book, Dragons Don't Go to Church. It is going to launch March 28th. I had to make a couple of changes to the book, which I have done and updated, and so I will have the pre-order link soon. So if you want your own copy, let me know and I will make sure that you get the link. But this comes out March 28th, and you could also subscribe and like the channel and come back next Thursday. Thanks, guys.